The history of Mongolia was shaped by the exploits of one of the world's greatest empire builders. Genghis Khan's military success was born by the speed of his cavalry and the strength of his men, both of which are celebrated to this day in the sporting festival known as Naadam. The sweeping landscape of Mongolia has witnessed some of the most dramatic events in early world history. Most of these orchestrated by the great Mongol conqueror Genghis Khan. Although mainly thought of in negative terms in the West, he was one of history's most charismatic leaders. During his lifetime, he occupied more territory than any other conqueror, and his successors established the largest contiguous empire in history. Ulaanbaatar is the country's capital and a living monument to the great emperor himself. Even present-day Mongolia remains under the imposing influence of Genghis Khan, and everything from its social structure to its religion and even its national sports is shaped by his decrees and laws. All of Genghis Khan's military enterprises were mounted campaigns, often at great distances under the harshest conditions and against numerically superior enemies. His successes were due in large part to Mongolia's horses, small, incredibly tough, and sure-footed. They were able to survive on sparse grazing and were capable of carrying both their riders and provisions over great distances. Horses remain as much a part of Mongolian life today as they did in the time of the great Khans, and are celebrated as part of an annual festival known as Naadam. Held in the capital during the national holiday in July, Naadam is also held on a smaller scale in cities and towns across Mongolia. The festival is believed to have existed for centuries in one form or another, but its origins lie in sporting competition, highly regarded by Genghis Khan himself for training his Mongol armies. Today, the festival formally commemorates the 1921 revolution, when Mongolia declared itself a free country. First up are the several heats of horse racing that will be spread over the 3 days of Naadam. What is most unusual about the Mongolian horse races are the ages of the riders. Children from 5 to 13 are chosen as jockeys and trained in the months preceding the races. Surprisingly, accidents have been few and far between over the years that the races have been held. Being in the saddle is second nature to this community of riders, and even the youngest of them are allowed to take part in such high-risk competitions.
Би алын эрдэнэ сумын 2 дугаар аягийн Баттмөрийн эрдэнэ чимэг байна. Манай дүү Надлан морин сурсан, энэ жил хурдан морин унсан. Алын эрдэнэд хязаалтанд тавлсан. Энэ наадамд соёолнд тавлсан. Алыг даагунд дөрвөлсөн. 3 шөв хийж энэ жилд. Алтан туяа 4 нас 6 сартай. 4 сартай.
The sisters spend some quiet time in the saddle in the final moments before the race. but the little jockey is already raring to go. Mongolian horse racing in Naadam is a cross-country event with races 15 to 30 kilometers in length. Each race is determined by the age class of the horse. The older the horse, the greater the distance. Horses and their riders gather for the start of the 2-year age group race. There are about 50 riders in total. Although most of them are from the local Kubskul province, others have come from much farther afield, with supporting friends and family in tow. At the sound of a whistle and accompanying shouts by onlookers, the race begins. In front of the riders lies a 10-mile course, crossing valley floor and hillside. And as they head off into the horizon, the real stars of the show take center stage. The sport of Mongolian wrestling, known locally as bok, is the most popular of all Mongol sports and has existed in Mongolia for centuries in one form or another. In fact, historians claim that Mongol-style wrestling originated some 7,000 years ago. Wrestlers have an important cultural status in traditional Mongolian society, thought to embody ancient ideals of nobility, strength, and chivalrous sportsmanship. Genghis Khan used wrestling to keep his army in good physical condition and ready for combat. Mongol history records incidents in which the Khan arranged to have political enemies killed during a wrestling match. But present-day tournaments are far less hazardous, and the more well-known wrestlers enjoy a loyal following throughout the entire country. Today's gathering is made up of this year's top contenders. They've made it through several rounds of fights over the last 2 days and have now qualified for the final 9 rounds of competition. This is all familiar territory for one highly respected individual as he oversees preparations for the opening bouts. Ochipurev is a past champion, having won in his own district 13 times. At the Naadam, he has twice earned the rank of Nachin, or Falcon. He is a source of inspiration to all the wrestlers here. Many of the younger contenders grew up watching him in his prime.
Монгол хүн чинь угаасаа л хөл дороод эрэгтэй хүүхэд нь барилддаг. Эмэгтэй хүүхэд нь уралж эхэлдэг. Инхээр бид одоо эрэгтэй хүн болгол бүх болохын төлөө бүх барилдахын эрдэмтэл заяасан Монгол төв юм. Та ингээд 1700 оноос хойш өнөөдрийн наадамд бол их олон цолтой, цолгүй их олон бөхчүүд барилдаж мэх ирвэрээ уралдуулж их сайхан наадлаа. Ингээд их сэтгэл өндөр байна. Миний залуу үе санагдж байна. Идүүг 300,000 гаруй жил 3,000 ч юм уу одоо ашиг 300 гаруй жилийн түүхтэй юм бүхийн их гоё торгон дэвж юм да.
Wrestling matches are held in the open, on a grassy field, or on cleared bare dirt. Only men compete in the Naadam wrestling competitions, made up of over 500 participants from different cities and provinces across Mongolia. Preparations begin with the donning of the traditional wrestler's costume. Although slight additions have been made over the years, the overall look remains the same. The yodag is a collarless, heavy-duty, short-sleeved jacket. The front is open but tied at the bottom with a simple string knot, exposing the wrestler's chest. According to legend, a wrestler defeated all other combatants, only to rip open the yodag, revealing herself to be a woman. From then on, the yodag had to be worn, exposing the chest. The shutak is the characteristic set of briefs worn by each wrestler. These make the wrestler more mobile and prevent an opponent from taking advantage of long pants to get a better grip. These high-cut leather boots are called gotal and are traditionally reinforced with leather strings. And to finish off the whole ensemble, one of the most important features, the wrestler's hat.
аймгийн солтой хөлтүүд энэ. Сумын солтой хөлт залаагүй байдгийг. За тэгээд төрүүлсэн бүх нь бол энэ гадна талынхаа энэ улаан дээр эмблемтэй байна. 5 6 давсан бүхчүүд нь энэ дотор талтай ийм юмтай байна. Энэ тэмдэг бол цол цолороо аймаг улсын начин, заан, харцаг, арслан, авраг гэдэг. Аврагууд нь одоо дархан аврагууд нь бол дөрвөн талдаа за ийм очиртай. За энэ тэмдэг бол улсынх нь том, өөр. Аймгийнх нь нэг иймэрхүү. Заан арай том, арслан бас арай том. Ийм маягаар ялгагддаг. Миний энэ хувцс бол Монгол хувцс. Дээл нь. Энэ бол Монгол бүхний өмсөх ёстой. Зайлшгүй өмсөх ёстой. Оросоор бол форм.
Before and after the match, each wrestler performs the traditional eagle dance, or devik, based on the flight of the mythical Garuda bird, which symbolizes power, bravery, grace, and invincibility. Today, apart from its aesthetic value, the dance is also regarded as a warm-up and cool-down procedure before and after an intense fight. Good wrestlers take the dance seriously and are often better dancers. The wrestlers slap their thighs to show they are ready to begin the match. Mongolian wrestlers have a range of techniques called mechs, which they utilize based on their assessment of each opponent's strengths or weaknesses. A highly skilled wrestler knows hundreds of mechs. The object of a match is to force an opponent to make his back, knee or elbow touch the ground. Since there are no weight classes in Naadam, a small wrestler can compete against an opponent over twice his size. The smallest wrestlers usually weigh around 70 kilograms, while the biggest of them can be over 160 kilos. Therefore, each wrestler has to be in the peak of physical fitness to be an actual contender. And that demands a vigorous training regime that makes many other sports workouts pale in comparison.
За би бол 1961 оноос хойш идэвхтэй хүртэл бүхий торгон дивжинд барилдаж байна. 40 гаруй жил болчихоо да. Цаашдаа бол би одоо хойтон жил барилдаад тэгээд.
It's the referee's job to ensure that the rules are adhered to and that points are properly awarded. But in Mongolian wrestling, referees have a further responsibility, one which requires them to be in good voice. Mongolian wrestling has its own code of etiquette. For example, when one contestant throws the other to the ground, he's supposed to help the latter get back on his feet before he dances his way out of the field. Whether they have won or lost, good manners dictate that the two opponents shake hands and salute each other and the audience, both prior to and after a bout. As the bouts progress, the intensity of wrestling increases. Mongolian wrestling has far more to do with gaining prestige and respect than actual monetary rewards. Ranking can only be achieved during the Naadam festival. So even as they begin to tire, the wrestlers struggle on, eager to improve their standings for another year. For all Mongolians, the horse is a necessary and valued asset for life out on the plains. And as such, horse racing is an important part of the Naadam festival. The sport itself is thought to be centuries old. dating back to the Bronze Age. Competitions are not held on special racetracks, but right across the steppe, where riders are confronted with various obstacles like rivers, ravines and hills. A sense of anticipation grows at the finish line as the crowd waits for a first glimpse of the race leaders. By this time, the returning pack consists of riders from different age groups and classes, so there are several winners. And of course, many stragglers bringing up the rear. The winners do a full circuit of the stadium, each accompanied by a herald. The winning horse receives the honorary title of Leader of 10,000 Horses. And both rider and steed are blessed with mare's milk. The 5 runners-up are also awarded with medals. Interestingly enough, the losers are also rewarded and honoured. At the wrestling arena, it's finally the moment of truth. 2 men are left standing in the arena, both champions in their own right and evenly matched. As they prepare to meet each other in the ring, they are given some final encouragement by their Zazul, who acts as both coach and herald. At the beginning of the 3rd, 5th and 7th rounds, during lulls in the match, the Zazul slaps his wrestler on the back and urges him to push on. Now the rest is up to the wrestlers themselves. The number of rounds won by each wrestler determines his rank, and these ranks have unique names, inspired by the animal world. In ascending order, these begin with the falcon, hawk, elephant, garuda and lion. When the lion wins 2 years in a row, he is awarded the ultimate ranking of Titan, of which there are even higher levels. After an entire day of fighting, the wrestlers are visibly tired and spend more time testing each other's endurance rather than actually executing takedown moves. They use this time to regain their strength and prepare themselves to finally undertake a decisive move. As the finalists go head-to-head, one of the senior referees demonstrates the various takedown moves that can decide the outcome of a wrestling match. As always, the aim is to pin your opponent's upper body, knee or elbow to the ground. In the finals, a decisive move is finally made and a new champion emerges. 22-year-old Said Bazar pays respect to his opponent before celebrating his victory by performing the Eagle Dance. He then collects his prizes to the applause of the crowd. A final tradition is for the champion to share out gifts of cheese to his audience and supporters. As he does so, runner-up wrestler Batulga makes a quiet retreat, but he'll be back next year.
Манайхан бөхөө барилт тэгээд уюутан дамжсан аав ах юмрыгээд уургаад бүх болохоор шийдсэн багаас барилдсан. Угаасаа багасаа барилдчихсэн тэгээд угаасаа Монголын ганц бахархал бол үндэсний 93 наадмын баярын болны ганц том чухал бүх болохоор угаасаа багасаа бүхий амьдралыг сонгоод нэлээд олон жил барилдж байна.
The Naadam Festival is a living celebration of all the qualities and values that have enabled Mongolians to endure and thrive in a challenging environment, just like the land they call home. The people of the plains remain tough and resilient and proud of their legendary heritage.